Blerd Assassin, Counter Thoughts, Stardate 080721. Now, admittingly, I'm a lot older than a lot of people perhaps viewing this. If we're around the same age, I wholeheartedly apologize for assuming. Now, as you know, if you wouldn't or watched some of the previous videos, podcasts, you're aware I'm a product of, an immigrant. My dad was from a third world country. My mom is a hippie from Chicago, a black hippie from Chicago. I grew up on primarily Motown, everything that Motown influenced, psychedelic rock and classic rock. Like, that's what I grew up on. So what I witnessed with those performances growing up from those artists was nothing short of spectacular. The gold standard was the Temptations, in my opinion. They're perhaps the greatest group, the greatest performers in regards to R&B, anything that I've ever witnessed. Secondly, I throw the Four Tops, OJs, Queen, and Jimi Hendrix up there. Like, those are the greatest performances I've ever seen. Now, Michael Jackson, again, that's covered by everybody that Motown influenced. Michael Jackson was on Motown for a while with the Jacksons, maybe even with his first couple albums, or first album, Off the Wall. I'm not sure, but he was a Motown influence. So that's what I'm saying. Those were the standards of what performances were set by. And that leads me to this particular video. We were privileged to witness a versus between the Dipset and the Lox. Now, versus, for those unaware or sleeping under a rock during this entire pandemic, the versus is basically two groups, two bands, two artists, where basically they either perform or play, past hits. I've only really watched two, one being the Gucci versus Gigi, which I believe Gucci hands down won. Also, the Babyface versus Teddy Riley, both of them, which Babyface won. But with the Lox and the Dipset, it was interesting because we were two powerhouses. In my early adulthood, these were the powerhouses. You could throw State Property up there, but the Lox and the Dipset, Dipset was more on the surface, just gaining fans, gaining notoriety through, Cameron's flagship efforts, which Cameron is in a league of his own. I'm not going to take anything away from Cameron. Cameron as a solo artist, dude, like he's the man, but he brought on Jim Jones, Jules Santana, the Freaky Zeke guy, and it was them versus the Lox, Jadakiss, Styles P, Chic Luch. On that side, Styles P is like, if him and Cameron did an album together, like that would have been just epic. But it was those two groups against each other, and what we witnessed was a group who sailed off their notoriety and their vibe against a group who was groomed as street dudes. These are street dudes. They were groomed to be top-notch performers. I mean, this is the thing, and this is why they won. Well, let me go back. Dipset was supposed to win. They were in Manhattan, which is, close to the 5 boroughs, which is like a home court advantage. Yonkers is pretty much like a Trotwood outside of the New York area, but still New York main city area, but still a part of New York, the New York vibe, the New York culture. I believe like that Dipset was favored to win, and anybody who did not recognize the Lox and what they've done were basically unaware of it, would have basically said this is a hands down win for Dipset. Think about the Lox. They were brought up when Big was alive within that bad boy machine. Do you honestly believe that Puffy would put any money into music making or anything behind a group that wasn't ready to perform? This dancing ass nigga. Like, he's from what, the LaFace or whatever, Steve Stout era. This is what he did. You know, he groomed these guys to be performers, excellent performers. So it's no surprise that they jumped in and basically did a #2 on Dipset. You know, Dipset, they're known for recording and taping over recorded information. You know, this is what they're known for. And it showed in their performance. I mean, if you've ever been to a Dipset performance, this is as good as it gets. They're not going to do much of anything besides rap in front of all the guys who they brought to the performance with them. And Freaky Zeke is going to jump around much like he did in this performance. Like, I didn't even know that was Freaky Zeke. When Sheik was saying, and Styles were saying this was some comedian on stage with him, I thought it was some new comedian. I did not know it was Freaky Zeke. But as an adult, well into my adult age, this is the same shit Freaky Zeke had been doing. So I'm not surprised like he was jumping around as the hype man. Like, this is what he does. And that's the performance of what Dipset tries to provide. You know, meanwhile, the Locks, they're hands down MCs. They control a crowd. They control the narrative on stage. You know, a Locks performance, maybe none of you are, you know, old enough to remember or have never been there. A Locks performance is just those three going hard at it. And that's what we've seen with this particular versus. We've seen the Locks as MCs dismantle a group who basically has slid by with Cam being their representative and rapping over recorded verses. It's nothing new to anybody who's witnessed this. And in today's day and age, like, it looked very lackluster compared to what the Locks could do. They controlled the entire scene. And that's basically why the Locks won. I mean, hey, if you feel Dipset won, props to you, but more than likely you're just a diehard fan. And you're not willing to admit that this is how all their performances have looked. They're just as shitty as what you witnessed that day. That's it. Hey, you got something else to say about it? Comment, like, subscribe.